Are you guys watching any international these friendlies and stuff like that? Anything? Like
Well,
even to watch our boys and stuff like that?
I was
I mean,
gonna
I
bring
watched
up
2K yesterday, but
I was gonna bring up Trent's performance if we had time, and I think he played midfield. Listen,
bring it, John.
he had a goal, ran the game. Just saying, he ran the game.
Yeah, he did. I mean,
He ran the game.
there was like a 4-second clip I watched. I heard everyone say that it was like phenomenal, his performance. I didn't watch it, and then I saw like a 5-second clip, and it just said like, "Show me another player in England who could do this," and he just like casually just hits like a reverse bend.
That pass from the right wing, right?
And I was like, all right, now I'm going to watch the highlights because that was, he just looked like he was in his element.
Players who like passes by getting on top of the ball,
mm-hmm.
so the ball you know what I mean? Like a lot of backs will get underneath the ball, so there's a lot more of like a curvature. So obviously it takes longer for the ball to get there, and if you're doing a diagonal, it gives more time to the back to kind of recover. You rarely have guys like him who can hit the ball on top. Like Thiago could do that as well. Hit the ball on the top. So like it's almost like curves down and goes to that diagonal a lot faster. And I think it makes it like 10 times more effective because then it's like a lot harder for defense to ship. Yeah, that pass he sends, I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous. I didn't watch it either, but Gally says he ran the game in the second half when he moved to right back. DC, thanks, Gally. He wasn't that great first half in midfield and often was caught out of position. See, I don't know. If you find the system, I am not against him playing midfield like John thinks. I just, in the current system, I just could not find one spot similar to, I couldn't find a spot in this midfield for Coutinho, as great of a player as was. It's not about skill. It's like didn't suit him. I don't know if Arne would be able to come up with a spot where we can kind of get the best out of him and cover his weaknesses.
I feel like people always go with either the 6, one of those double pivot midfielders, because we're obviously, this is assuming he's going to go with a 4-2-3-1, right? Either one of those double pivot midfielders or right back. I say an underrated shout is the 10 in that 4-2-3-1, because let's be real, in terms of a pure playmaker in the squad, like wherever he is on the pitch, you'd kind of back Trent to make something happen there. And if he plays as a 10, he doesn't have the responsibility of going back and defending because 10s never do, right? And if you're talking about...
Well, 10s never did.
Yeah, they never did.
They kind of have 2. That's why you don't have 10s anymore. Well, like the way we used to, I should say.
Yeah, we used to, but then in that center position, in that middle of the 3, in the 4-2-3-1, I feel like could be a good shout. Or even that right side of the 4-2-3-1. I don't know. Just tossing out ideas here.
Because I worry about him as a 6, and I will always have because like out of position.
Because the argument about it is defensive responsibility, right? Like, what if we actually move him to some positions who don't really have as much defensive responsibility, which is either that middle of the 3 or the right side of that 3 in the 4-2-3-1. You know, just a thought.
I know what you think, Gordo, but in some ways, I feel like the more you push him up the field, the less effective he is. He has to come back to get the ball because that diagonal is worthless if you're a winger.
Yeah, it's what makes him good is his position. And the same thing with moving him inside the 6 is like he's a natural winger. So when you give him space on his back that he normally doesn't have, you know, your brain does definitely shut off. I know we talk about it all the time on here, and I'm beating a dead horse from things that I've probably repeated on every podcast. But when you move a player into another position,
about that girlfriend again.
But when you move a player in another position and you have like that different like fields, the spatial awareness changes, and sometimes your brain is still working like, oh, I've got the line to my back, I'm fine. And then you've got 6 other players behind you, and you're not even paying attention to them because you're really only ever focused on, you know, looking to your left. So I think it is like where he's at on the field makes him good because that's how his game is adapted. I felt like it was a situation this year of not being fully fit and also kind of getting in his head that he was going to go into midfield and kind of like lax defensive responsibilities, but hopefully that can change because I do think he's a better wing back, and I think you get yourself a good solid cover in the center, and you really don't need him to come back, because like we talked about it the whole time, like part of the reason that you could ignore his defensive lapses was because Verge, we had the cover for that, and it wasn't as exposed as often. And as everyone knows, if you score goals, if you make assists, no one really cares about how crap of a game you had. As long as you don't like blow the whole thing. If you're getting 2 assists a game, everyone's going to look the other way. I always like, it's the Ronaldo of the 2021 or 2002 France. Well, France was 98, so it would have been 98 World Cup. Ronaldo, he's got off. If you watch all the Brazil games, it's pretty much trash. And then he
fucking poked against Turkey. Thanks for bringing these memories. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Scores a goal, wins the game, and everyone's like, he's one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
And they're just like, people just forget about your crap.
When Henderson was in midfield, he was the best right back going forward. Not sure why we're looking for more industry from the guys in front of him. I think the 4-2-3-1 helps in that sense. I think the biggest task is reselling him on being a right back, because I do feel like we put midfield in his head, and that's why his defending has gone even further. But when you do a 4-2-3-1, and if the right side of that 2 is like, hey, man, you're going to stay back because this guy is going to push up, then you got covered. Like, then the defensive. But my thing with Trent has always been defensively, it is not a matter of him being out of position as much when he's a right back. It's more about when he's in position, every give and go, he loses his guy. I mean, it's just like very mind-boggling, or the back post guy and stuff like that.
Which is why I'm kind of advocating for
I got
to move him out of those situations as much as we can.
It's more like defensive awareness, I guess, is my bigger concern. But like Gally was saying, it did actually work when we did have Henderson covered. I mean, it wasn't as exposed like you were saying, Gordo, as of like we've seen recently. It's not like but part of it is I think his awareness has gone down even more once he had a concept of being able to be the midfield guy. Like, it was like, this defense thing is overrated anyway. I should be a midfielder kind of thing. That's biggest task of, we always talk about him with Nunez and stuff, but biggest task of Arne is probably also reselling Trent on being a right back, because I do feel like that's still the best position for him. But we shall see.